Hello and welcome to both a tutorial on the functions assignment, but also the just a lesson about what functions are and why they're important and how you work them. So I'm starting with a blank spreadsheet. So if you want to take the next few moments while you're listening to me talk to get to a blank spreadsheet somewhere on your machine, that might be a good thing so you can follow along when we eventually get to the lesson part. But functions, let me talk about functions real quick. Functions are a huge piece, a building block of computer programming. And so when we learn about functions, spreadsheets and Excel and all the spreadsheet software uses them quite a bit, and yet they're not unique to just using spreadsheets well. They are actually just a huge part of computer programming. In fact, when you become if you become a computer programmer, when you become a computer programmer, they're the first things we teach you. One of the first things, and so spreadsheet software uses them really well, and it's a great opportunity to learn how they work. And so a function is like a formula. You've all taken math classes, I assume. I assume you've gone through some algebra, some very early algebra. You know how formulas work. In class, whenever I teach this, I yell out, somebody name a random formula for math class. And usually someone says something like a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Or somebody says m equals mx a, mass times force times acceleration, right? Mass times acceleration. So let's take that one, that force equals mass times acceleration, and that is a formula. And so this means if I want to solve for F, then the user, the person using this formula or using this computer program, has to give me what? Two values. I'll pause real quick so you can say them out loud wherever you are. What two values does the user have to input to make this formula work? Okay, if you said the mass and the acceleration or the m and the a, you were right, right? So if I give this formula, the m and the a, then the computer program will give me f. It will give me f back. And so if I was to translate this into spreadsheets, I would actually say up here that this cell, B6 is the cell, this cell B6 equals, and I'm just going to say C1 times C2, right? That's what it equals. So right now when I hit enter, it's probably going to say 0 because nothing is in C1 and C2, and 0 times 0 happens to be 0, right? But if I put here that this is going to be mass of the object and this is going to be acceleration, right? And if the mass is 5 pounds and it's accelerating at 5 miles per hour, I get 25 down here. This is force down here, right? So that's a little bit about how functions work. You need to start with an equals C1 times C2, right? So that's a formula or a function. Now, when I'm computer programming, and I love computer programming because it requires equal parts left brain and right brain. It requires equal parts logic and math and then creativity on the other side of your brain. I can actually write formulas. I can write functions. They're called functions in computer programming, but they're really formulas with a twist, which we'll get to. They're really formulas for how to that the computer can use, and if the user gives it the inputs, it can give the output. So right now, before we get into functions, you have a nice little button up here. It's somewhere else in Microsoft Excel. If you're using that, you're going to have to find it. And I really don't know anything about Apple spreadsheet software, so you're all on your own there, but I'm sure it has this button, functions. And this gives you all the functions. There are literally hundreds of functions right here. See how many there are? For every part of life. You have an operator, you have math functions. You guys probably recognize atan and sine and cosine. So those are for strawberries. Those are for triangles. They're not for strawberries, they're for triangles. Hey, some strawberries are triangle shaped, right? Info types, we're going to get into some of that on one of the assignments this week. Even Google search functions are on here, which I think is funny. Financial, which we're also going to get just a little bit into sometime this week. Filter functions, which we have the filter and the sort, which we went over last week, which is fun. So yeah, there's hundreds that other computer programmers have saved in here for you to use. So when you write a function in computer programming, functions have three parts. There are three things you need to do to have a function. The first is functions have to have a name. This is very important because when you use a function in computer programming, when you use a function in Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, you have to call the function. You have to call out to it. You have to say its name, just like if we were in a crowded room together and I had to yell your name to get you to look at me. If I just said, hey, you, all the yous in the room would look at me, right? If I say, hey, Stephanie, then Stephanie or two Stephanies are going to look at me if there's two in the room, right? And so if I'm going to have a function, it has to have a name. Next, it has to have a parameters. Parameters are what the user inputs. They're what the user supplies to the function or the formula to make it work. And then the third part is the formula itself. So you have to have a name, right? You have to have parameters, and you have to have the formula. So when you write these functions, usually when you write them, they look like this. In almost every computer programming language, they look like this. So we're going to start with the basic sum function right here. It's the basic sum function. And we're going to say, when you call it, if I was going to write this, I would say sum, and then the parameters go in parentheses. So when I write it, the parameters go just like that in parentheses. And so if we go to A1 and we say equals sum parenthesis, and they're separated by commas, I think if you are in a European country or a country that follows the European system, I know Brazil does, I think you have to use a semicolon, not a comma, so be careful of that. You'll get an error. But right here, it's telling you what the parameters are. It's values, and value 1, and then value 2, and you can give it as many values as you want, and it will add those values together is what it's telling you. Right here, it gives you an example of what it looks like when you call it, and it tells you what it does, and it tells you what the parameters mean. So value 1 is the first number or a range that you want to add together. So, so there you have it. It's the name of the function, in parentheses, the parameters, and notice it tells you about it right here, but it doesn't give you the formula because it doesn't need to give you the formula. If I'm writing this, then yeah, I have to write the formula if I'm writing the function. But in Microsoft Excel, you're just calling the functions, you're not writing them. So if I write them by giving the, notice it filled in D10 there, we'll get to that later. Notice that if I was writing this, that's where I was before I got confused. If I was writing this, then down here, and usually tabbed over, I would say x plus y plus z, right? But since you're not writing it, you're just calling it, the way you call it is you call it by its name. So you're saying, I'm calling the sum function, and I want to, my parameters are maybe 1, 2, and 3. And then when I hit enter, I'll let you guess what the number is going to be. If you guess 6, you were right. It's going to be 6, right? So it's the sum of 1, 2, and 3 is 6. In Microsoft Excel and Google Sheets and any other spreadsheet software, you can actually use the value in cells as your parameters too. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to delete all this. I'll leave that up there for you because you need to know that. So right now, I'm just going to type 5 random numbers. Right here. If you're following along, do this at home. There you go. There you go. So 5 random numbers, right? And so right here in B1, I'm going to call the sum function. So B1, whatever goes in B1 is going to equal the sum, and then do a parenthesis. Once again, it tells you what it's looking for. And I'm going to go down here and just see how I just clicked and held down my mouse button and selected those. Notice it put a colon between A1 and A5. A colon in computer programming usually means 2. So I'm saying the sum of A1 to A5. So A1 to A5, that's what a colon means, at least in spreadsheets are concerned. And the answer is 4,804. So hopefully you understood all that. Hopefully you'll follow it along. Basically, I'm saying the sum should be whatever the values are. If I change the 5 to a 10, now it's 4,809. If I change the 2056 to a 56, now it's going to be 2809. So there you go. If I change these values, this one automatically changes as long as the formula's up here. By the way, this is the value. This is what's actually in the box. So if I want to change my formula, I have to click up here to change it. Or I could just type it over. If I want to change it all together, I could just type over. So that's the sum function. You also have a product function, which multiplies them all together. So A1 to A5. Pretty big number there. I mean, you're multiplying hundreds and thousands together, so it should be. I can also use an average formula, A1 to A5, and it will average them for me. All kinds of fun functions. If you click over here, all kinds. Oh, the count function's fun. Let me do that. So equals count of A1 to A5. This isn't adding them. That's just telling me how many numbers, how many cells have values. It's 5. If I delete 167, then it changes to 4. See that? Isn't that fun? So yeah, it just tells me how many cells have numbers. So notice all these changed as well. So all kinds of fun things we can do. As I said, there's hundreds of them. They're not always useful. Some of them are very narrow, very narrow in their focus, and you're not going to use them. But we have the a cosine, we have the cosine, we have the tangent, cotangent for triangle math. We have all kinds of fun things in here. We have interest for banks and stuff like that. We have variables. The days are always fun. So it will tell me the day of the month the specific date falls on. And so, so that one day is the name, and you just give it a date. So the date I'm making this video is 10/02/2020. If you're watching this in, you know, July of 2046, welcome to the past. So I tell you, that lands on the 30th day of the month. That doesn't seem right. That's weird. So some of these are finicky, and you have to play around with them. So let me look at the day here again. It says day of the month, the specific date falls on. So let me, yeah. You can calculate the number of days between two dates. That one's kind of tricky. So you really have to pay attention to the, let's try another day. Let's try my birthday. So 8/21/1984. Also gave me a 30. That's weird. That was not the date of the month that fell on. So weird. So yeah, so sometimes you have to play with them. Sometimes they're tricky. And you have to kind of play around with them. I know there's a tool up here where you actually have to format a number. And this said automatic. Yeah, 30.00, that didn't work. So yeah, some of these, you know, you have to play around with and figure it out. I know in the days one, it's the way, oh, and that may be what happened. So if something doesn't work right, try adding quotation marks around it too. So, so that might be it. Yeah, 21. Okay, you need quotation marks like that and that. So that's what you need to make that one work. I know it's the same with the days. The days function's fun because it will give you the number of days between two dates. So right now it's October 2nd and school ends December 21st. So you have to use the last date first. So 12/21/2020. Separate it. Remember, you have to separate your parameters with a comma. And then today's date is 10/2/2020. And the result should be 80 days between now and when school gets out for Christmas break. So kind of fun. You can, once you learn them, you can play around with them. And so, so your assignment this week is to, and there's a worksheet attached with this video, if you're looking at it in Canvas, is to find 5 functions that we haven't covered in this video or in class. So you can't use these ones right here. Well, you can use max and min. And tell me the name. Tell me what the parameters are. Tell me what it does, which just clicking on it, it gives you all of that. And so right here, single value from a table-like range, meaning you're getting a value. And then try to guess or Google it, Google the function, and try to just tell me who would use it. Would a banker use this? Would an accountant use this? Would a parent use this? Would a teacher use this? Would a student use this? Would a mathematician use this? Would a scientist use this? So you can be broad, but just try to guess who would ever use this formula. So once again, you're starting from this list, and you're just clicking some of these and finding out what it does. So this gives you the average of values, but depending on the formula criteria. So averaging them if something else is true. And then give me 3 or 5 of those, however many are on the worksheet, and tell me what they do and who would use them. So hopefully you learned something in this. I think all this stuff is fascinating personally. I'm kind of a geek that way, but good luck on your assignment. I look forward to grading it.